athletes with DSD to have their testosterone levels reduced. And for more reaction on this story, we're now joined by Shani Bartlett, who's an academic associate in the Faculty of Law at the University of Pretoria. Thanks so much indeed for joining us, and I am sure that amongst other South Africans disappointed with what we've heard this afternoon.
Yes, very disappointed. It's absolutely devastating news.
All right, so let's break it down a little bit. The CAS, what were they mandated to do? Because when they were giving their statement, it seemed to be that they were quite careful to say what was before them and not look much wider than a certain band.
Yes, so the issue before them is that Caster Semenya and the ASA had requested that CAS declare the regulations of the IAAF as invalid. And that was the issue that was before CAS, and they made a ruling based on that.
All right, so when we say declare them invalid, on what basis were the arguments 2 and 4, 2 and against?
The argument, as I understand from the press release, is that essentially they relied heavily on the fact that the regulations are discriminatory. And interestingly, while the majority of CAS panel did find that the regulations were discriminatory, they found that they cannot declare them invalid on that basis, as the discrimination in the majority opinion is that that discrimination is fair and reasonable as well as proportionate. So
what they're suggesting is that to handicap her is to level the playing field?
Yes, so the majority panel decision is that that is what needs to be done on the basis of the submissions that were given to them.
All right, so what does this now mean for athletes like Caster?
Oh, this opens the door for many more regulations on intersex individuals in sport, as well as the DSD individuals, as we know, in athletics.
So, I mean, this could have far-reaching implications, as you say. I'm just wondering, my understanding of the law is that you've got to put in laws that are applicable generally in all situations. Otherwise, it becomes a question of people's left to their own discretion, which sport, which event, and that kind of thing.
Yes, so in sport, that is not generally the approach. In sport, each sporting federation has their own regulations. So this opens up the door for many other sporting federations to follow in the IAAF's footsteps and implement regulations on intersex individuals as well.
All right, so, I mean, you are working with the Faculty of Law. From a law point of view, what would you say about this ruling? What arguments would you be able to put forward, or you think could be put forward to say that perhaps they got it wrong?
Well, the official ruling has not yet been published. So all we have to go on is the press release statement, but from the statement that was released, it seems that CAS, or the panel rather, has a lot of concerns about the regulations, but that nevertheless, based on the submissions that they have, they still think that they are reasonably necessary to protect the level playing field, as the IAAF argues.
All right, so the application of the regulation is something that they said would be a concern as well, because this is an artificial process, lowering someone's testosterone. So it may be that they may have won this round, but there could be problems later just on how to administer testosterone-depressing drugs and things like that.
Yes, definitely. One of the major concerns for the panel is how this regulation will be implemented, and it's something that they have suggested should be watched very closely, which seems to suggest that if the scales are tipped in the incorrect direction, that it would open up the IAAF for more legal action.
we spoke a little bit about perhaps the implications for other sports, but it seems odd to us lay people that only certain events were chosen. Was there a rationale for that, or any science that supported not including other events?
So the IAAF does claim that there is a rationale for this. They have a study that they publish, and on the basis of that study, certain events had more of a competitive advantage than others. And on that basis, they targeted specific events. But the study itself has actually come under a lot of scrutiny from various academics as being biased and many other statistical errors in the actual study as well.
And this is something that the CAS couldn't interrogate, really. I mean, their job was just to decide on whether the rule or the idea of limiting someone's ability because of testosterone levels. They didn't interrogate how sound the studies were, or did they?
I'm pretty sure they did, but as I say, at this stage, the hearing itself and the ruling for the hearing is confidential. So we do not have that yet. So if that was something that was taken into consideration, we would not know until we receive the ruling.
All right, so hypothetical question for you now. There are men that are born with abnormal levels of testosterone. Is that going to be something that might come under scrutiny as well?
That should be something that should come under scrutiny, definitely. Whether or not the sporting world will bring it under scrutiny is another question entirely.
Otherwise, this is discriminatory against women in particular, isn't it?
No, it definitely is.
All right, okay. We're going to leave it there. Thank you, Shani, for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. I'm sure we'll get a bit more clarity once the details of that ruling are made public. Thanks so much indeed for your time. All right.